Hey everyone, David Coe, the Co Real Estate Group. Hey, one of the questions we're getting asked all the time now is for people that are looking to buy their first home, different strategies on how to save to buy that first home. And well, I figured if that's the case, I should bring on a certified financial planner to help talk about this. So I've got my good friend Mike Baker here, who is a CFP. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, David. Excited to be talking through all this.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us about you and your firm and what kind of who your primary clients are.
Yeah, so I'm based in the South Bay as well. My firm, Gerber Kawasaki Wealth Management, we're up in Santa Monica. We manage about 4 billion in assets for clients all over the nation. Some of the clients we do work with are something I'm sure David's going to talk about are Henrys, high earners, not rich yet. These are clients who are maybe in their 30s and their 40s. They're making really good money, but they live in an expensive real estate market like Los Angeles. And one of their main goals is, hey, how do I buy a home? How do I save up for that money? Or sorry, for that down payment. So what we help those clients with is putting together a full financial plan to get there at the end of the day, and we help them manage their investments in house to efficiently save for that money.
I mean, so look, the first question is should they buy or should they rent? And so I know buying isn't right in every situation. We certainly have certain clients, they're not sure how long they're going to be in Los Angeles, but what does that conversation look like when someone says, I want to buy a house with you through your process?
Yeah, it's a great question. It always starts with, well, what are your goals? Right? What's your life like? Are you planning on having kids? What's your job situation? We want to learn as much as we can about the client and what they're trying to achieve because I think over the last 50, 60 years, there's been this whole, topic about the American dream. You got to buy a home, you got to get a kid, have kids, but that's not right for everyone at the right time. So one of the main questions we ask at first is, well, how long are you going to be living in this home? Is it for the next couple years, or is this going to be something that's longer term, maybe a forever home? Are you planning on, buying it and then renting this one out and leveraging to another place? So a general rule of thumb for us is if you're only going to live somewhere for a couple years, just rent.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be a landlord. You don't have to. There's a lot that goes into buying a house from, the down payment, from maintenance, from, purchasing costs, all these sorts of things that if you live in a house for a long time, it amortizes out. But when we talk to our clients, one of the main ways that most Americans have built up savings is two ways. Number one, it's home ownership. They're paying down their mortgage. It forces them to save money every month. People think, oh, I got to pay a 5K mortgage. Well, a lot of people don't know that, yeah, you're paying some interest on that, but you're paying principal every month as well, which principal is savings towards you, right? You're building equity in your home.
Well, and
And
one of the things we love about that is every payment they make more principal, less interest over the course of 30 years.
correct.
And 20 years from now, that payment's almost all principal. And, the value of a dollar 20 years from now is so much less than it is right now.
Yep.
But that payment's fixed for as long as their mortgage is in place.
Yeah. And your rent's probably not going to be fixed over those 30 years. It's going to be going up 2 to 3%.
Yeah.
So you lock in a 30-year mortgage, right? And your payment's the same for 30 years. Your property tax might go up a little bit, but that's separate. But rent, you're going to be paying, double in rent versus someone else who had bought 30 years ago. It's going to be
Yeah.
much different in situation.
Yeah, and look, you're also subject to the whims of a landlord, right? You never know if they're going to, either want to occupy the home, sell the home, right? You may constantly be forced to move because where you live is really owned by another person who may have other dreams. They're not just there to hold that piece of property just for you, right? It's part of their financial plan as well.
Correct. And if that happens, there are moving costs, right?
Yeah.
There's security deposit costs. There's a lot that goes into it as well. And what if it's not at the right time for you? What if you're about to have your first or your second kid and your landlord knocks on the door saying, hey, I'm selling the place in 30, 60, 90 days and you got to get going. So it could throw some wrenches into your overall financial plan.
Yeah, the idea of someone renting because they might be moving, maybe they have the potential to be relocated to another market. It doesn't mean that shouldn't begin their home buying journey, right? Now, it might be the right move to rent right now, but maybe that means that they are going to be looking to buy in the next 5 to 7 years, every time, there is certainly whenever you move from a rent, there is, the cost to that. Well, every time you sell a property, there's costs as well. It's usually 5 to 7% on closing costs and fees. So if you just buy a house and 2 years later you go to sell it, if the market hasn't appreciated 7%, you're probably going to take a loss on that, right? So that might be a situation where renting is good, but then you prepare for the buying timeline just because you'll have more time to start saving for that down payment.
Yeah, that's 100% correct because, buying a home is probably the biggest financial decision most people make.
Mm.
And it's not something that I think that you should just make randomly, right? You need to prepare for it. You need to make sure that all your ducks are in order. And also putting together a plan to make sure that you know how much you should save and how much you can afford
So
and the different
let's move on to
strategies.
that then. So let's assume we both have done an excellent job qualifying our client.
Mhm.
Buying a home is the right move for them, and now we have to help them form a plan of attack, right? What does that look like on your side when you're working with the client and you've made the decision that buying the home is the right thing for them?
Yeah, so first things first, you want to decide on what type of home you want to buy, right? Is it $1 million home, $2 million home? Do you just want to buy a $500,000 condo? And then from there, we could do some math. Okay, I want to put 10% down, I want to put 20% down. What's realistic for you and your situation? Once we figure that out, we'd say, okay, let's look at our budget. How much are we saving on a monthly basis? It all starts with the budget. Are you spending a lot of money on rent? Are you spending it on subscriptions, travel, healthcare, student loans? And then what we do is we develop a plan for our clients saying, okay, I need to have $100,000 in the next 5 years.
Hmm.
We do, a time value of money calculation saying, okay, I need to start saving $1,000 a month if it's invested at this rate of return. And then what we do is we have our clients force save or pay themselves first. So they set up an investment account, they set up a high yield savings account, and when their paycheck comes in, they automatically put that money away as paying for their goal and paying for their future. And what that does is number one, forces you to save money. Number two, gets you on a systematic savings plan. But number three, it really, puts that goal into motion. Every month that you're taking the steps to buy that home. And it's really good practice to have.
One of the things that we also talk to clients about is when it is time to qualify for the loan, they're going to look at, many factors, but one of them is what are their monthly expenses, right? So beyond the fact of your income and how much you earn, part of the preparation for buying a house might be retiring expenses that you have on a monthly basis. You mentioned student loans. You mentioned, car payments are a big one. We have so many people that have these really expensive cars and they're renting, and it's like, well, you've got all this money going to a depreciating asset and you can't afford an appreciating asset like a home. Maybe you need to rethink how you're driving around and buy something, a used car that is still nice, but it'll get your payments down, and maybe you can even pay that off when it's time to buy the home because you've decreased your expenses.
That's correct. I mean, especially if buying a home is one of your main goals, there might need to be a push and pull, and that's why going through your budget and saying, "Hey, where's my money going to, and is it actually improving my quality of life?" is
Mhm.
really important because buying a home over time, in my opinion, will improve your quality of life as well. And thinking about how much of a house I can afford on my budget, right? The financial planning rule of thumb is no more than 30% of your gross income. Sometimes lenders will qualify you up to 40, 50%. But you want to look is like, okay, I have this mortgage payment as now it's $7,000, right? Is that pretty much most of my monthly budget? Am I going to have a chance to take my kids to Disneyland? Am I going to be able to travel and do everything that I want overall? So making sure that fits into your overall budget and overall plan is really important because, in my opinion, you don't want to be like house poor. And if you do, just be prepared for that is where we come from.
Yeah, I mean, whenever we send someone to get pre-qualified or pre-approved, we tell them there's two numbers you're going to get, or you should walk away with. Number one is what are you qualified to spend? And number two, what are you willing to spend? right? Because just because you're qualified for $1 million home, if
Correct.
you can't go on vacation, if you can't put your kid in club sports, maybe the amount of home you want to actually purchase is less than that. Make sure you've got a clear vision of that before you start looking and writing offers on homes.
Exactly. And then, if that amounts too much, do you talk about other strategies, right? Is there a way to put a larger down payment? Is there a way to get money from someone else? Do you wait another 6 months because another bonus is coming in? Do you have a bunch of equity compensation at work that you can sell to fund this home? There's a lot of different strategies and techniques, but that's what we talk about the whole big picture financial planning.
All right, so assuming you've got them on a plan, they're paying themselves, saving money, how do you usually manage that portion of their savings, once you get them consistently starting to save it?
Yeah, great question. So, if you're trying to buy a home in the next 1 to 2 years, you should not invest your money in the stock market. It's just too volatile in the short term. Who knows what's going to happen? The worst thing that you could do is put your money in the stock market. You're trying to buy a home in 6 months, there's things going on that are out of your control, and all of a sudden your $100,000 down payment is now 90,000, and you're like, oh crap, well now I can't afford. Now you weren't prepared for this. So anything that's 1 to 2 years away, we recommend throwing in a high yield savings account, or if you're a high income earner, buying some US Treasuries. The big difference there is your yield is locked in for the time period you bought the bond, but also in the state of California, you don't have to pay state taxes on that money.
Mm.
Your high yield savings account, you were paying um, both California taxes and federal taxes on that,
On the interest that you earn.
on the interest that you earn.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's one strategy that we've implemented for more short-term savings. Now, if you're talking, hey, it's 2 to 5 years away, well, how are we going to get you there quicker? Is hopefully getting higher rates of return on your money. And with that, have some exposure to some stocks in the portfolio for some more upside. And then hopefully, the stock market does well over that time period. Maybe you get to that house a little quicker. Your lifestyle changes and you're able to save more. And all of a sudden, that 5 year time horizon is now 3 to 4 years. And what we see is saving is addicting. Okay.
Mm.
Once you see that investment account go up, you start making money, you're contributing to it. Like, wow, this is great. I was like, I want to get to 50,000. I want to get to 100. I want to get to 200. And it becomes a game you play with yourself. Right. And in your mind, I'm a big behavioral finance person. If you don't see money, a lot of times you don't spend money. And when you put money into that house savings account, in your mind, it feels spent already.
Hmm.
Right. But if it's in your bank account that you could swipe your debit or your credit card, you might spend that money a little quicker and then delay your home purchase more than you wanted to.
Well, and I think delay is a key word, right? Because sometimes it's delaying instant gratification, right, for long-term financial growth, right? So we have clients where, look, maybe it is the right time to rent right now, and maybe you could afford to rent a $4,500 a month rental. But if you rent a 3,000 a month rental, you might not be as comfortable, but now you've got an extra $1,500 a month that you can put towards your savings plan, whatever that plan may be. So then the house you can buy, like you're delaying some of that gratification. Same thing with cars, right? Like wait and buy the house and then go buy the fancy cars because you're not going to have to apply for a mortgage again. And not only that, but you might make more, 3 to 5 years from now where you can afford that. And I think a lot of younger people have a hard time suffering, delaying that gratification, but usually that's the best strategy on how to get there faster.
It is. It is. The one thing about young people is you have time on your side. Time is your best friend, and compounding interest is your best friend.
Mm.
So the earlier you can put money into, buying a house, appreciating assets, investment accounts, retirement accounts, and then you let your money work harder for you, you're going to be way better off than if you did this 10 or 15 years from now because you decided to take that bigger trip, buy that fancier car, and spend more money when you were younger instead of ripping off the band-aid, buying appreciating assets and setting yourself up for success.
Awesome. So the last thing I want to talk to you about is we just had a client where actually their parents helped their child buy a home, and they had a substantial stock portfolio. They were able to leverage their stock portfolio, help their child buy a home all cash. And then when they were done, they then went through and did a refi on that property and kind of paid themselves back. I don't think most people know that stock portfolios can be liquid. You can borrow against them. Can you talk a little bit about that and some of the strategies that people do that for?
Yeah, yeah. So what David was referring to is something called the securities-backed line of credit, SBLOC, as we like to call it. And essentially, what you're allowed to do is if you have a non-retirement investment account, let's say it's worth $1 million, you can borrow against that. And usually, it's interest-only payments. You can do fixed payments as well. But what this is for is David recommend or discussed, is if there's some sort of liquidity need, like you want to help your kids buy a house, or you're trying to sell your house and buy another one, and your investment stock portfolio has a lot of gains, and you don't want to sell those to just realize taxes, because then you have a tax drag on your portfolio. What you can do is just borrow against it. Right? You make interest payments as you're borrowing, and then you're able to leverage your portfolio, and then help your kids pay for the home. Or if you're someone who's looking to upgrade your home and you don't want that other house to have to be able to force to sell it to buy the new one, right? This allows you to bridge that gap.
Yeah, look, that's a great strategy on the I want to buy before I sell. It's great to do that because a lot of times, if you want to sell your house and make it contingent on buying another home, first of all, you've got to live through the sales process, right? Having your home clean, having it staged, or at least having it ready, having showings, versus if you can use something like an S block where you could go buy the house. Now you can move into the new home. And then we can treat, especially if your house needs a little bit of work, right? Maybe it needs new carpet and paint to help you get top dollar. It's hard to do that when you're living there. So you can use sometimes the funds from your stock portfolio to get out of the way, and maybe even use some of those funds to help renovate the home. And then you sell it, pay the S block back, and you don't pay any taxes on any of that.
Yeah, that's the biggest key, avoiding taxes, especially, if you're a parent, you're a grandparent trying to help out your kids and you've had this investment portfolio for a while. The stock market's done quite well. You most likely have some pretty large embedded gains in the portfolio. So it's a great planning technique to avoid taxes.
Awesome. Hey, this has been great. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing the info. If people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way?
Yeah, send me an email, mike@gerberkawasaki.com. That's the best and easiest way. You can visit our website, gerberkawasaki.com, or those are the best ways. Reach out on the website and just ask for me, and we do complimentary consultations. We'll review everything for you and see how we can best help you out.
Awesome. And we're going to put Mike's email in the notes below. So, hey, thanks for watching. Hope this was helpful. And if you did like it, please like the video, subscribe down below, and hope to see you next time. Thanks, everyone.